Joining us now for the second consecutive week is former BYU basketball coach and recently returned mission president from Indianapolis, Indiana, Steve Cleveland.
Coach Cleveland.
I can't believe you came back after week one. I wondered. It was crazy, but you're back.
We're back. We had a great time last week, and I'm looking forward to today.
You're calling the game tonight with Dave McCann on BYUtv between BYU and Coppin State. I'll be on the sideline as well. You've got one regular season game to go off in terms of what you are anticipating tonight, and that was a solid win against Princeton. What was your number one takeaway from that BYU win against Princeton?
Probably 20 second chance points, 52 rebounds. There were some surprises to me defensively. BYU took away the backdoor cuts. That's what Princeton's known for, all of the sharp passing and backdoors. And I think Coach Rose and his staff did a great job taking that away. I was a little surprised that Princeton missed as many threes because that's something that they do. But I really think the rebounding in that game made a big difference. And then offensively, I think we were 4 for 16 from the three, but we were inside out. And with Mika inside out, it made all the difference in the world. And it kept us close, got a lead. With 4 minutes to go, that game was in question. I mean, it was either tied or a 1 or a 2 point ball game. And I think, again, it came down to offensive rebounding. And, I was a little surprised with Princeton. They didn't send anybody to the offensive glass. I mean, it was 5 back. And
they were so worried about getting back.
So worried about stopping the transition and the fast break that they never really gave themselves a chance to get any offensive rebounds.
Did you expect Eric Mika to be that good that early? That was unbelievable on Monday.
It was. And Princeton didn't have a lot of size, and they got in foul trouble. But you know what? The thing about Eric is he's just relentless. I mean, he's got a work ethic that he just never stops playing. And there was one sequence where he was surrounded by 4 Princeton players, and he's going up, misses, goes up again, and finally finishes it. And that was at a critical time in the game when it was a 1 or a 2 point game, and he makes that, and it just turned the tide.
Steve Cleveland with us on BYU Sports Nation. 26 points, 18 rebounds. The Lone Peak 3 scored, I think, 61 of the 82 points that BYU scored. Do you feel like these 3 can live up to the hype? I mean, it's been one game, but I feel like the expectation is set so high for them.
It has been set high, but I think if you are around them and you know that they are a very confident group, you take TJ in that ball game, 20 points on 11 shots. He was always probing, always look. I mean, he wants to take the thing. He wants to penetrate and attack and create a shot. But he had so much patience in that game, and anytime they stopped him, he'd just take a dribble back, throw it into Mika, and they would play. And I think TJ was every bit as good as Mika. I mean, Mika had some pretty amazing statistics, but TJ's game was so under control, and he wasn't forcing things. And some in the exhibition games, they took some shots and did things. He was just under control. And Nick Emery had 8 rebounds. 8 rebounds.
Pretty crazy.
8 rebounds. And so, yeah, you know what? I do believe that game in and game out, they're going to be there. They're going to have their moments, obviously. But it was a good one. You mentioned it before. It is the biggest win of the year because it's the first game.
Yeah.
But that's a team that is projected to be in the NCAA tournament. And I was a little disappointed in Princeton, just their overall aggression level on the glass. And I thought they settled for threes. I mean, I know that's their mantra. And
they took
what they
35.
Do. Yeah, they just settled. I mean, it was like, where are the back cut? Where's some penetration? Not once in that game did they double Mika. And I thought that might have been an adjustment at halftime. Let's go on and let's see if they can make a 3. We're 4 for 16, but they needed another body on Mika if they were going to be effectively to be able to guard him.
I could play for Princeton. If they settle for threes, yes. I could play for Princeton. Nick Emery's role on this team is interesting because last year at the end of the year, I think he had a really big role on that team. Yeah. He was kind of played third fiddle, and then he was kind of the main guy there at the end. On this team, I almost think like he's settled into a really comfortable spot of, okay, I don't have to exert myself in a crazy way. It will come to me in this. What do you see with Nick Emery's role?
You know what? I agree with you. I think that the thing about Nick that he can do is he can create a shot better than anybody on this team. For a young man that's 6'2", he can get to the rim. He can take a hit and still finish. But I believe his leadership is really showing this year. And he's not taking quick shots. He's not taking contested shots. unless it's late in the shot clock. So I think his patience, his maturity, and I think too, he's got two of his best friends that he's playing with. And they have chemistry, and I can't imagine how many games they've played between AAU and high school. And, this is not Lone Peak, but the three of them had some special experiences together. And I think as a result of it, Nick's maturity, I think all three of them, no one has an agenda. There is no agenda here, and you can see it. They're really unselfish.
Maybe the only agenda is winning.
Yes.
Like
yes.
It's a unified agenda together.
It is.
What did you see from BYU defensively that you liked against Princeton?
I think that the preparation, because I had to prepare for Air Force Academy when Joe Scott, and I think they were even more disciplined than, the thing about Princeton, they're a little bit looser. I mean, they'd run their stuff a little bit, and then they'd jack a three up. But the thing I liked was, number one, they followed their game plan. They rebounded the basketball. And even though they didn't have a lot of opportunities out of it because Princeton got 5 back, I thought they were really in control. I would give their defense an A. I mean, if I were going to be grading that, I thought they did a really solid job. Now, that being said, there were probably 7 or 8 wide open, take 2 seconds to take the shot threes that Princeton didn't make. And if maybe if that ball game's back at Princeton, it might be a little bit different. But it's a tough game. I talked to Coach Rose, and he says they're really tough and hard to play. And I said, I know that.
Yeah. And tonight you have Coppin State. You're going to be on the call, as mentioned. Coastal Carolina. We'll talk about that in a second. But what do you think of this matchup with Coppin State?
Well, it's a very athletic team. We'll talk more about it tonight. But they've been on the road for a week, and they're traveling cross country today. It's very difficult to fly somewhere, get off the bus, and play. They're 0-3. They've not really been in any games except against Hofstra. They're on the road. The first game of the year was a 2-point game. They don't have the ability to score enough to beat BYU. They'll play hard. They'll compete. I've talked to one of the assistant coaches I know. They're very competitive, but they just don't have the numbers and the size to put up with what BYU is going to give them.
So my 27+ is on point. That's what you're saying.
At least. Here's let me say this. Let me clarify one thing here. You'll notice in that game against Princeton that only 7 people played for the most part. I think
for BYU.
For BYU.
Yeah, it was a tight rotation.
It was one of those games that I think Coach Rose and his staff knew we need to win this game. Who are our most experienced people? Who are the people right now that are ready to play? That's not going to be the case. One of the good things that's going to happen, again, even against Coastal Carolina, who Coastal Carolina is a much better team, but we're going to get an opportunity to see that bench because preseason is an opportunity to give them, you have some young shooters, you talked about Kobe and others that need to come in and get some confidence in a real game. That's going to happen this week, and that's going to be a good thing for the development of this team.
What does BYU hope to accomplish in these next 2 games before things get very interesting next week against St. Louis and then either Alabama or Valparaiso, their first time away from home on a neutral floor in Las Vegas?
I think one thing we just mentioned, a rotation. Who are going to be those 7, 8, 9 people that we can count on? So that's going to happen. I think the other thing is that collectively letting that younger group get on the floor together without maybe all 3 of the mainstays of the team. How will they compete without Mika? Can Yoli Childs take care of the inside by himself with a smaller lineup? This is also an opportunity to go small. And every coach loves to go small, where you put a 4-man there that can shoot the 3. Where are those lineups? Because there's going to be opportunities down the road that they're going to need to maybe go small at times. I think those are the things that they're going to learn. One of the things that's been really impressive to me, I had one of the coaches tell me this yesterday. LJ, if you looked at his numbers and say, he was solid, he's a pass-first point guard, they said that his leadership in the game, after the game, next day practice, it was the best practice they've had in 10 years after a big win. He said it was such a focus, and he gave a great deal of credit to LJ. And I thought about his role and Elijah, and people need to be a little patient with Elijah. He hasn't practiced in about 3 or 4 weeks, and I do believe he's going to have a significant contribution in this team. But right now, LJ's leadership on and off the court is really having an influence on these younger players.
President Coach Cleveland, what you just said about LJ Rose is big because BYU has had these big wins and then disappointing losses following them before. I'm not saying Coppin State is that kind of threat, but you can't go up to Gonzaga and win and then lose to Portland, right? And so that's a big deal, especially with the youth of this team. I think the LJ Rose transferring an injection of experience into this team is really big for the whole season.
You know, I completely agree. And I'll tell you the other thing is, he's not coming here all of a sudden looking for his. He's made it really clear that I'm a pass first point guard. I'm going to make you better, TJ. Mika, I'm gonna get the ball to you. That gives people confidence. And then when the game is, there's no pointing fingers. And yet, next day, it'd be really easy to kind of just enjoy that victory and not have kind of the commitment to the practice that they need. It doesn't matter whether it's Coppin State, because down the road, it's going to be Alabama. Down the road, it's going to be Gonzaga. How do you prepare for games? And a lot of those young men at the division level, I mean, I remember doing it. I know Dave's doing it. We went through, here's where you sit on a bench. This is how you check into the game. These are the things you do, because they have to learn those things.
Yeah.
This is what we do. This is the culture. And so, yeah, I think LJ's experience at Baylor and Houston is a great plus for this program right now.
Game 3 this week will feature the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina. If you remember, this school won the College World Series of Baseball, and they've got a pretty good basketball team as well. We mentioned they beat Coppin State by 30 earlier this week. What do you anticipate between Coastal Carolina and BYU on Saturday night?
My only comparison was, we talked about a little bit earlier, would be like a Florida Gulf Coast. Athletic, long, can run the floor. I'm not suggesting they're as good as they were. They were 21-12 last year. Had a good season. They've got an amazing coach. Cliff Ellis has been at 4 different Division I programs. Has won 150 games at each of those schools.
That's nuts.
Yes, it is. And he's got over 700 wins. And so, great leadership. They're going to be obviously a different type of test. I think the benefit for BYU is that they're traveling across the country and they're coming to altitude, and all of those things will be to BYU's benefit. I think it's a game BYU wins, but I think it's the one game this week that probably has this coaching staff a little bit nervous.
It might be tough for Coppin State to step off the bus and play tonight, but clearly Steve Cleveland has stepped off the plane and is in mid-season form. My friend, thanks
It's
for the
only
time.
game 2, but it's going.
Let's go.
It's good to be here.
He's on the call tonight with Dave McCann. I'll be on the sideline 9 Eastern, 7 Mountain for the Eagles of Coppin State and BYU Cougars. Thanks, Coach.
You bet. Good to be with you.